Alright everyone, we have arrived at the meat of the game. This video is going to be about phase 2 of a game round, and this is where everyone will spend 90% of the game. This is where all of the 4X comes into play for the most part. This is where you'll do your expansion, your production, your warfare. The strategy cards will be played that were mentioned in the previous round, and really the first phase and third phase are just setup and resolution of this round. So there's a lot going on in this, and to kind of distill it down, though, there are 4 basic actions that every player can take. The round basically consists of players taking turns, taking one of those 4 actions before it passes on to the next player, and that goes by strategy card order. So on this example board, I've taken a slice of the galaxy, don't need a full one. We've got the Jolnar, who I'll be representing, and my opponent that's adjacent to me is the humans. Their strategy card they picked was leadership, which they have 1, so they would be going first. And I would be going towards the end, as I have a 7. I have the Technology 2 card. So, to get started, let's talk about the 4 actions that somebody can take. So when it comes around to your turn, let's say it's come to my turn now, I can do one of 4 things. The first thing I can do is I can play my strategy card. And by doing this, I then go clockwise around the galaxy board. So actually, because the humans are adjacent to me, they would be last, even though they have the first strategy card. But I play my primary ability, and then clockwise we go around and let people have a chance to execute on the secondary. This would then get turned over to the inactive side so that everybody around the board could see it. Once the phase 2 cannot end until every single strategy card is inactive. If there is 1 left, the game's still on. Now, what it does mean is that once I have played my strategy card and is inactive, I can choose to pass, which that puts me out of phase 2 for the remainder of the round. The only thing I can do, so let's say I've played this and I've passed, but the humans still haven't played their strategy card. If they decide to finally execute their primary, I would still get a chance to use tokens from our command counters from my strategy allocation area to play on the secondary. That is the only thing a past player can do. He cannot take any other actions on the galaxy itself. Oops, sorry. So those are 2 actions. Once every player has passed, the game round ends and we move on to phase 3. So, the other 2 actions actually encompass the majority of the expansion, the exploration, not necessarily the exploitation, but definitely the extermination of the game. So I'll be using this example, Slice of the Galaxy, to demonstrate some of those for you. The simpler action that people can take is what's called a transfer action. So let's say that in the beginning of the game I expanded to this planet, Garbosia, and I have the planet card in my possession. It's worth 2 resources and 1 influence, and it has a green technology specialty. So that's my card, and I own that. But I did it early, and I just have a carrier here and 2 ground forces on it. And the humans have been amassing a dreadnought, a cruiser, and they look like they're about to come in for an invasion. To try to take that planet or even make a push all the way to my home system. So what I'm going to want to do is bolster my defenses there to deter them invading, or if they do decide to invade anyways, actually have some enforcements actually do some space combat with. What I would do in this instance is I would enact a transfer action. I would take a command counter from my command pool. I activate a hex, and that's one of the systems I want to transfer into. And then I take another command counter, not from my race sheet, but from my reinforcements, because I'm taking one action and I'm only spending one command counter, so I just need another representation of the system I'll be transferring ships with. And I'm going to activate my home system because that's where some of my heavy hitters are at. So what's really nice is on the race sheets, there's a cheat sheet that goes through all the steps of the transfer step and the basic action step. So if you forget a step, players will remind you definitely for sure if you miss something, or you can check before you take before you execute on any action. So I've activated. That's step one. The next step is to move the ships. So what I'm going to do is, the carrier is not really good in battle, so I'm going to move him into the home system to defend him. But I'm going to swap him out for my dreadnought, my cruiser, and my destroyer. And I'm going to leave the carrier in here for now. So what I've done is the transfer. Now, when moving ships around, just to note that your fleet count on your race sheet has to match your ship count in a sector. So example, if I actually left this ship in there and my fleet count was only 3, I would have to actually discard one of these ships to my reinforcements. I don't want to have to do that, so I'm going to swap them out. I can only have a fleet of 3 right now, if that were the case. So at that point, the next step is PDS fire. PDS is planetary defense systems. Those are ground forces that are transferred just the same as soldiers, but they allow to fire from the ground to spaceships in orbit. Now, there are no PDS in the system of the opposing team, so they can't fire on me, and I don't have any in any of my opponent's systems, so I can't fire. However, there is a technology called deep space cannon that if the humans had it, they have a PDS in this system, they can shoot at adjacent systems with an enemy in it. So at that point, they would roll, and let me check what the limit is for that. They would be rolling for 6 on a D10. So let's say, for example, that they do have deep space cannon, they would at this point roll, and they rolled a 3, so nothing happens. They totally whiffed it. But if they hit something, one of my ships would be damaged. And the person receiving the damage gets to choose how that damage is located across their forces. Okay, so at this point, no combat. Good. The next step is to planetary landing. I already own the planet, so I don't need to do that. So at this point, we move past that to production. Production means I can produce new units at a space dock in a system that I've just activated for this turn. I have activated the home system where I have a space dock. Every race starts with a space dock in their home system. The game would be pointless without that. So I can go ahead and build if I want. So if I actually wanted to use, because now I don't have any defenses in my home system, I could actually spend Garbosia 2 resources, exhaust it by flipping it over, and get its 2 resources to build. Oh, let's build me a cruiser. And where are you, cruiser? Or I could build a destroyer, 2 fighters. It's however you want to distribute it, but cruisers are nice. They have a nice battle roll, so I'll just put him in there for now. And that's the transfer action. Alright, so let me reset things a bit here, and I will go on to another example. So, move him back here. There we go. Let's say, so moving on, the 4th action, and this is when the main action that has a lot of permutations, is activating a single system. And this is the base action that you can take. So the first example I'll do is just what we call a a neutral landing or a neutral annexation of a planet. So say nobody's taken this planet, nobody owns it. The planet card is still on the deck, and I wanted to take that. So I would take a command counter, place it on here. I would then take my carrier, which I was in that system all along. Yeah, joking. So that's that system set up this way. I can now move a carrier in, and carriers are what carry my ground forces, and I'll take 2 from that system. And I'll just go ahead and take a fighter entourage along with me, and because we're close to some enemies, I will move a cruiser in, and I'll move a dreadnought in. So that was activation, ship movement. Again, PDS fire. So let's say they have the deep space cannon again. They'll take a shot. 8, they have a hit. So I'll just take one of the fighters off. Big deal. Actually, every resource lost is a big deal, but it's not necessarily as serious as losing one of your bigger ships. So at this point, we can conduct a planetary landing. So we've landed. There's nobody to fight. There's no hostile forces on that planet, so we would get the planet card. We have successfully annexed it. And now we could also do production. Now, we've just come into ownership of this planet, so we actually get it exhausted. There are a couple abilities in the strategy cards that let you refresh exhausted planet cards. And then, of course, in Phase 3, you refresh all exhausted planet cards. But for the most part, when you move into a new system and take a new planet, you can't build anything on it for the remainder of that round. You have to kind of hold on to that resource for the round before you're actually allowed to utilize it. Okay, so that's a peaceful annexation. So let's reset again. And now let's say that at one point the humans had taken this planet. So the Federation of Sol actually has this card, and I want it because they're too close to the system and I need the additional resources, or I need the green tech this tech specialty that the planet has, so I'm going to take it. So I activate it. I'm going to move my carrier, and because it looks like I'm going to have a ground battle because they have ground forces there. They probably left them alone because they had to move their fleets elsewhere because they were getting pressure from another neighbor, or they were making a push at Mechatol Rex and left themselves open. Who knows, whatever. This actually does happen a lot. So I move ships into the system, and their PDS fires at me for, they missed. So at this point, we commence landing. Now, when you land ground forces on a hostile planet, there's the invasion combat that takes place. Oh, I'm messing up the board here. Let me fix that. Okay, this table is really slippery. Invasion combat, bombardment. If a dreadnought is in the system, it gets a chance to fire at the units on the ground and eliminate them, which I didn't move any in, so we don't get to do that. The PDS fire gets, basically it's kind of like as your drop pods or whatever are going onto the planet, the PDS is firing up at them, picking them off at the air, so they get there's a short window for them to hit somebody. 9, so they'd hit somebody. So they'd eliminate like one of my soldiers. Okay, so I landed 3 guys successfully on that planet. Now we begin the actual combat. And this really just consists of both sides rolling the appropriate amount of dice and trying to hit the number limit to score a hit. They get a roll per unit, so in the humans' case they have 2. The PDS doesn't get to fire anymore, and the Jolinar, or the Hylar, get to fire 3 because they have 3 ground forces. So the ground force units hit on an 8, so we're looking for an 8. There's a 6, that's a miss. A 6, it's a miss, so the humans didn't hit. The Hylar, 2, 8, there's 1 hit. 4, okay, so we have 1 hit. So that was 1 round of combat. Now the losses are taken. So the humans lost 1, so now they only get 1 roll, so it goes back. Roll 10, so they got a hit. But that's it. So Hylar roll 8, and we can stop right there. So now the human forces have been completely exterminated from that planet. PDSs, because there's no one to operate them anymore, that system is gone as well. Those get returned to the reinforcement of the humans, and now they will have to surrender their planet card to you, which you will get exhausted because it's been through battle and it needs a breather. That's the example of a hostile invasion or annexation. So that planet is now mine. I will reset the board again for another example of the movement. So, remove my command counter. Let's put the humans back on here. Alright, and let's say they've got a dreadnought and a cruiser here, because they're making a push in on my home system, which would be kind of dumb with the reinforcements I have right now, but this is purely academic at this point. So let's say I want to take that planet and exterminate them in the process. So I will activate. I will move ships into the system, which you can move from multiple locations. So actually, because cruisers have a movement of 2, if this guy's back here, I could actually move him up into this system. It doesn't have to be 1-to-1. It's just whatever ships can get there can come in, as long as it adheres to the fleet supply. So I'll move a cruiser, a destroyer. I'm gonna move a carrier with 4 dudes, and these hexes can get really packed. So I'll move those, and then 2 of the fighters, and let's just say my fleet supply is at 3 right now for the Hylar, so they can't move any more ships in. So this initiates space combat. So I've activated, I've moved, now PDS fires again, so we're hitting on a 6, so their PDS fires, and no hit. It's really an inaccurate PDS system. Okay, so now space combat is very similar to the ground forces combat. Each player takes a roll for the designated ships that they have. Dreadnoughts hit on 5, cruisers hit on 7, fighters hit on 9, I believe. Yes, fighters hit on 9, and then the carriers hit on 9 as well. And this is without tech modifiers. So actually, that's a good thing to mention at this point, is the Hylar have several racial abilities, but one of their cons is that they have -1 on all their die rolls. So that means the carriers, which are normally 9, I'd have to roll a 10 to actually score a hit. The same with the fighters. I'd have to roll a 6 with my dreadnought and an 8 with my cruiser. So we'll go ahead and play it out like that. So I'm going to roll for the humans first with the dreadnought. So shooting for 5, that's a hit. Cruiser shooting for 7, no hit. So 1 hit for the humans. Now rolling for the Hylar. I'm going to do the carrier shooting for 10. There's an 8. That's a miss. Dreadnought shooting for 6. 9. There's a hit. So 1 and 1. The fighters, I'm rolling 10s. Nope. 2, 4. Rolling 8 for the cruiser. No. So 1 and 1. So at this point, the humans have to decide what to do. So if I were them, I'd probably just take a hit on the dreadnought. Certain ships can take 2 hits, the War Suns and the dreadnoughts. Other ships, the cruiser can only take 1. now one hit here, I'm just going to remove a fighter for the Hylar. So then we go into another round of combat. Rolling for the Dreadnought. So 6, that's a hit. Rolling for the Cruiser. 2, so one more hit. Rolling for the Hylar. Rolling 10 for the Carrier. Oh, hit a 10. Nice. That's 1. Dreadnought 6. That's a hit, so 2 hits. And that's it at this point. So I sustained 1 hit, so I'll just remove my other fighter from the Hylar, but the humans lose their Dreadnought, which sucks, and then a Cruiser. So now I have ships in orbit, and PDS is already fired. I am now going to land ground forces, all 4 of them, onto the planet. Actually, I'm going to do my planetary bombardment first, which I'm just rolling 5 to hit 1. Nope, didn't hit. So I'm going to land troops. Their PDS is going to fire at incoming troops, rolling a 6. No hit, so nothing. And then I go into invasion combat like last round. And it proceeds from there. So that is pretty much all the actions you can take. You have this core action that has a lot of different modifiers and variables that apply to it. It's your primary movement and production and combat capability. You have your transfer action, which is like a staging action. You can pass, which ends your turn, and then you can play your strategy card. A few other things about the game board. Let's say I do own this planet, but I leave it because my resources are needed elsewhere. I would take one of my control markers and place it on that, just so people know that planet's owned by somebody, and who they're owned by. Really, in a lot of times, it makes it a beacon for somebody to go after. It really just denotes that. Building space docks, there's at most 3 space docks that you can build around the galaxy, so you want to make sure they're placed appropriately. You always start with 1 on your home system, so you get to build 2 elsewhere. Usually people build those kind of close to home, so you can really get a dense fighting force and defend your home planet against intruders. So that's pretty much it. There is a lot else, a lot more that's going on, or can go on, and that revolves around the strategy cards, which I went over in the last video. But those are all pretty self-explanatory in how they play themselves out, and hopefully you get a good idea of the different things that can take place on the board. Real quick, here's an example too. It's like, say you just want to produce this. You can activate a system to simply produce units in that system and shortcut all the other aspects. Now, if the humans had a PDS here and I just activated this system to simply produce units, they had deep space cannon, they could fire into this system. So that's something to be cautious about. Now, explaining activation. So here's a few things about activation, and let me remove some ships off the board. So let's say I have the tech upgrade so my carriers can move 2 spaces, and I wanted to take Garbosia. I can place a command counter there. If I've already activated this system, I cannot move through it. Or actually, I can, but I cannot stop there. I cannot pick up troops there. So if there were troops here, I could not move through, pick up those troops, and then land here. Once the system's been activated, it cannot be activated a second time in this game round. So, however, because this system hasn't been activated, I can take my dude here, swing by, pick up my other friends here, and bring them all over to this planet with my carrier. So there's a lot of different movement options, and the techs is you really want to tech up. It's like you can have the best fighting force there is, but if you don't have at least a decent tech tree, you are screwed in the late game. You will suffer greatly if you do not invest in tech throughout the game. Alright, so that ends this video. Next we'll move on to phase 3, and that's resolution.